Simple questions for 100 people. Welcome to the experiment. I'm Bill Correll, and this is my investigation. I'm researching to gather data from 100 beautiful human beings for the sole purpose to see what actually happens across the interviews. Now, the questions are all fixed, and the interviews will remain consistent, with the variable being the actual participants themselves and the answers. So it's as if I'm having you, Jason, come sit on my porch to share your thoughts so that I can learn about people. Looking forward to what I'm going to learn when we're done with this. But, pretty interested in the folks and your particular story. So it's my distinct pleasure well, hang on. What is your full name?
So this is a great way of starting the interview. My full name is Jason Wendroff-Rawnicki. I was born Jason Wendroff, but then when I got married to my wife, I actually took her last name.
So you both are hyphenated last names?
Same hyphenated name. Yep.
That's a custom that got started back in the olden days, back when I was probably 17, 18 years old. So do you have a middle name?
Stewart is my middle name.
All right. So your whole full name would be?
Jason Stewart Wendroff-Rawnicki.
That's kind of interesting. And what do you know about, where those surnames came from?
Sure. Well, I know at least my first name came from my mother's father. His name was Jacob. So, and that's my Hebrew name, Jacob. But my English name is a variation on that. So that's where the Jason came from. The Wendroff part, Stewart, you know what? I'm not actually sure where Stewart came from, the middle name. Wendroff is from my dad's side, which came from Russia. And the Rawnicki part is from my wife's family, who came from Poland. So it's got this very interesting mix, but of Eastern European Jews. So
that would actually imply that there's some pretty interesting conversations going on at your home.
Yeah, that is true. Every family gathering, there's definitely interesting conversations for sure.
I'm certain of that. So that's fascinating. And to move along with the questions, what's your favorite nickname that most people don't know?
Okay, so that's a good one. That's I got it in college. It's a long one as well. It's called I was called Pillsbury New Kid, and I'll have to explain about that. So my freshman year of college, I had very long hair. It was down to like my shoulders.
Right.
Between my freshman and sophomore year, I got it cut, and in the style of New Kids on the Block. So one of my friends was like, "Hey, you look like a new kid on the block." And then another one of my friends, I was much heavier at that point. He said, "Yeah, but fat, like the Pillsbury Doughboy." So then that sort of got combined into Pillsbury New Kid.
That's fantastic. And has that stuck over the years, or is that just something that was kind of the past when you moved on to bigger and better things?
Well, in the group that sort of formulated it, it's sort of stuck, but not many other people know about it outside like that, my sort of small college group. So yeah.
It's always good to have an in joke, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and it also reminds me, like, because of my own like health and wellness journey, like it just also reminds me how far I've come since college. So
Good for you. That's wonderful to be able to sit there and appreciate that.
yeah.
Some of us weigh a little bit more than college. But you definitely look like you're fit and in shape. So
Yeah, it takes effort though. It definitely takes effort.
good for you. Good for you. So when did you first notice what color hair you had?
I'm still working on that. It's gone through 3 shifts in my life, so I know. I don't know if it's as noticeable if you're listening, but I have like salting pepper hair, and so it's sort of changing from dark to white ish. When I was probably in high school and saw some baby pictures of myself, my hair was like a dirty blonde. So my hair has had this progression over my life where it went from dirty blonde to very dark brown, almost black. And now it's like in the salt and pepper phase. And I am very grateful that it's still there. So and there is a spot in the back, which is a little thinning. So I have a very lifelong relationship in watching the constantly changing colors of my hair.
Yeah. Yeah, the way that male pattern baldness hits different people is as myriad as as what their facial expressions are. So
Yep.
my best friend for over 45 years, he had the same kind of thing happening. When I met him, there was just a spot in the back here. With his comb over, he could have played a monk, in the old Robin Hood series. But as time went on, they chased to the center, and then he finally ended up shaving it all off about 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, my dad went like he went pretty bald at a fairly young age. So I'm happy to have what I got. So
Yeah. So this next question, I think I'll be very interested in your answer, but I just want to say you come across, in our brief knowledge of each other as somebody who's pretty on purpose in the world. So, what's your favorite thing to do to intentionally waste time?
So I have to say it's definitely television. More currently, there's and actually I've been looking at my behavior around that, around the intentionality of it.
Yeah.
Um, and I need that time just to sort of for my mind just to kind of quiet itself down and focus on something else. So even though it's intentionally wasting time, it's not really wasting time, but
Yeah.
it's definitely television. I grew up in the television generation. Right now, I'm kind of addicted to this show called Pawn Stars. It's kind of like a modern day antique roadshow, and I'm totally fascinated by all of the things that they bring in with the history and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's the Las Vegas, with Rick and Chumley
Yeah, yeah.
and others, and
Old
the
man.
old names. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, if you're just getting started on it, I think they have something like 4 or 500 episodes, so something stupid like that, and you'll never run out, okay?
yeah, yeah.
And over time, you'll start to have your favorites in terms of who the guest appraisers are, and
I love that they bring the same guys in for the certain things. I just think it's fantastic. So
yeah. Well, so leave it to you to identify this downtime as being therapeutic in nature, and I think that that's one of the things that our listeners, can probably take away from this, that when you have to take some time out, you're still mostly going to engage in some sort of thought process. And if it's something that, is both feeding you and recharging your battery along with some endorphins, then,
yeah.
by all means, have a ball with it, own it, and, and carry it with you with like a badge of courage.
And I think though, as long as it's done like intentionally, like with that, like okay, like I can easily get lost, which I'm not gonna, say that everything is intentional, right? I could totally get lost on the social
Right.
media and that kind of stuff. But then, like once I remember, just to kind of bring myself back and be like, okay, too much time. Let's go back to what I was doing.
I totally get it. And it's the noticing and becoming mindfully aware of something where you were not present to how much time's gone by or something like that gives you a chance to decide to continue, or maybe let's do something else,
Yep.
that kind of deal. So this might when what is your favorite movie to watch alone, Jason?
Okay, so I love the Saw series. Like they're very gory, they're really dark, but I actually look at it in a very sort of yoga way, which people say, how do you find like yoga? Because it's actually kind of the almost the inverted yoga principles, right? Like we need to appreciate life, and in the Saw movies, you appreciate life by really coming face to face with death. It's gory for sure. It's a little disturbing at times, but I just love that idea. I love that juxtaposition of, putting someone in actual fear of their own life to get them to live more fully.
I love that. I don't. I mean, I'm kind of interpreting that as some sort of a Shakespearean metaphorical representation of people getting cut up with a saw.
Yeah.
And I do
Well,
think you're talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and all of the subsequent ones after that,
no, no,
or
no, no, no. There's a specific horror series called Saw, and like the main villain is called Jigsaw, and he creates a puzzle so that you either get out of whatever trap he's provided for you, and you
right?
live, or you die. Like
Oh,
that's the
that's
whole
more
thing.
fascinating than what I was interpreting. So thanks for explaining that
Yeah,
to me.
and
I'll
and
I'll
I
be
think
looking.
there's and I think there's about I forget how many I think there's about 5 or 6 of them out now. I think they maybe actually just are, I think, releasing a new one out pretty soon, I think. But it's this really interesting series, and he creates these elaborate like uh puzzles, and that's why
Yeah,
he's called Jigsaw, right?
yeah. Well, my wife is probably up to speed on that because she watches a lot of things that I don't. I had to bail out of Breaking Bad in the second and third season because I just didn't see the point.
Right.
It was just, and then the other one that she does is she's got The Walking Dead, Fear the Walking Dead, Fear the
Oh,
Children of the Walking Dead's best friends, Fear the Grandchildren of the Walking Dead, all of that stuff. And apparently there's some kind of, storyline that goes along with it, but it fascinates her. And so
yeah.
Saw, I've now got a whole new
Yeah.
realm to go in and do some investigation.
Yeah, it is very gory though. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, it's very gory.
So, along those lines, do you have kids?
No, I don't have
No.
children.
All right, so you don't have to send the children off to do something in their rooms while you're.
No, but my wife, there's no way my wife would even come close to even like, she does not do horror. She does not do that kind of stuff. So, that's why it's my alone time.
Well, if it's a secret, hopefully we can keep it that way, just you and me and 10,000 of our closest friends, right?
Yeah.
So this one, I really want to hear from you. If you were to have an action figure made of you, Jason,
Right.
what superpower would it have and what colors would its uniform be?
Yeah. So I thought about this, right? Like, about the superpower, because I'm obsessed with flying. But it's so common. It's such a common one for superheroes. I was like, what would be the one? It would definitely be flying. My superhero would definitely have to fly. And then I was thinking of like something that's a little bit less, common. And I would say, if it were actually to represent me, it would be really to be able to talk your way out of any awkward situation. So
Mm.
that would be the superpower, because that's the superpower I possess. And so if it's going to reflect me, like, to really be able to talk yourself out of some sticky situations.
So, to be clear on that, it would have nothing to do with psychologically coercing someone without their complicity. It would be more
No,
about using critical thinking and rationalization and making a good case such that you could bring somebody else around to your way of thinking.
exactly. Exactly right. Right. And the
Uh,
color of my uniform would be purple and gold for sure.
Purple and gold, the royal colors. I love it.
Yep.
So now, while you've got these superpowers, you can not only fly, which gives you some range, and then you've got this ability to be like, the world's best negotiator. Uh,
Yep.
how would you use that, and where would you see the utility for it?
Oh, I would probably go to the Middle East right now and kind of get that thing all sorted out, because that's been a hotbed for many, 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 many years. And with my family, my mom grew up in Israel, and knowing the situation a little bit, like, it's that thing needs to be negotiated out pretty well. So, yeah, that's how I would do it.
Yeah.
That's where I would go.
Without getting too deep in the weeds on that, I completely agree with you. When people have stopped talking to each other, that's when problems begin. As long as we're all still talking, then there's some possibility.
Yep, yep, and it's like I see it always like a sibling relationship, right? There's fighting that goes on, and sometimes that fighting is not logical. It's all based on emotion, and so if we could kind of bring some logic into the situation, I think that would really help things out a lot.
Yeah, what you're saying, Jason, brings to mind the Hatfields and the McCoys, that for over 100 years, all of the offspring just carried for the hate,
Yep.
not knowing anybody in the other family. And then finally, they sat down and decided we've forgotten what we started fighting for, which became a real famous lyric. But the
Right.
point is that at some point there is a historical, kind of a hand-me-down legacy that's not good for people, and it's certainly not good for the people
No.
who hate. Yeah.
Well, and it doesn't represent most of the people. It just represents a very, very small, like 10% on both sides of the situation. And it's like, it doesn't represent what really people want, like the normal everyday person.
Right. You almost never win anything by punching somebody in the nose.
Yep.
If you want an outcome, um, it takes a little bit more courage and belief in yourself. And I think that would be a totally appropriate use of your superpower. Thank you. Yeah. Well done. We just got a power pose fight. So now we're going to go deep into Sherman Set the Wayback Machine to when you were 5 years old, Jason. And what did you want to be when you grew up?
So I wanted to fix mirrors. Mirrors broke and they needed someone to fix them. So that you would have called me if you had a broken mirror. So I wanted to be a mirror fixer when I was about 5 years old.
All right, so this is interesting. We're going to stay here for a minute. And what would the mirror look like after you broke it? I think everybody who's seen a broken mirror sometime in their life recognizes that what you end up with is a bunch of kind of odd shaped shards. And if you were to just glue them back together, you still have odd shaped shards that are not giving you a contiguous, smooth reflection.
Yeah, but so when I would be done, that I would figure out a process to make that, like, to meld those shards together so you would still get that smooth reflection. Um, yeah, it may, and maybe I have to rely. Maybe I should go back to my superhero and create the superpower to be able to take that glass and make it a continuous piece, right? Like, so then it would feed right into my profession as a 5 year old.
Well, there you go, and perhaps your negotiating skills are not just bound to human beings; they're bound to things as well.
Yes, to glass and mirrors and
That
reflective
that
surfaces.
that tree has fallen off over there, and we're going to put it back together just by talking to it.
Well, and it kind of like it always makes me like, I know my brain works a little bit differently than other people. Some I know all of our brains work differently in some way, but like I guess I must have figured that I hadn't seen anyone actually fix a mirror, so I wasn't it was gonna be me that was gonna learn to do that thing, like, and maybe even to do the impossible, right? Like, so, I had that drive as a kid.
So you're now thinking that it might have been a metaphor for something else. I'm kind
Yeah.
of curious. Was there an event or something that occurred where now suddenly after that, fixing mirrors seemed like it was really a good thing for you to get good at?
Well, I think that I probably saw a mirror being broken and then it just being thrown away, and I'm like, "Well, why we can fix other things, why can't we fix this?"
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's an intrinsic value in things that even though they're broken, maybe
Yeah.
they deserve a second look. Maybe they deserve some attention and some respect.
Yeah, well, just like that Japanese art where they take a broken piece of pottery and put it back together with gold. I always forget what that's called, but so that the fixed result is even more beautiful than it was what before before it broke.
Powerful metaphor. It's really lovely, as a matter of fact. So that's really cool. And then that whole fixing broken mirrors thing turned into some other pursuits for you along the
Yes,
way.
absolutely. Yes.
So, what's your greatest accomplishment, would you say?
So my right now to date, my greatest accomplishment is the I created a bereaved sibling support group online.
Yeah.
And it's really within the last I think I did it started in 2019. And it's really being of service to people. Like I just the community that has grown from that has been quite remarkable. And so yeah, I think that would have to be my greatest accomplishment right now.
It sounds to me like something that's probably going to compel you for the rest of your born days.
Yeah, it actually yes. So it start yeah, right, like and it's what really yeah, it gave me drive, it's giving me passion. It's really what my, what I came here to do. And I fought it for so many years. I definitely did. But then I just started to get out of my own way and kind of go with the calling that was in my heart. And
Yeah.
so like little bit by little bit, it's really pulling me, it's pulling me in that direction. Yeah.
Yeah. So along those lines, what do you think the future enhancements to that are going to be? Is it going to be increasing the numbers of people that you can reach, or are there some other things that you now know that need to happen, and you're going to have to develop yourself to do it?
Well, yeah, so that's what sort of yes. So the answer is yes, more meetings, like not run by all by me, but like having like a team of people running meetings. I'll have a small team right now, which is awesome. I run one meeting a week, but we have about about we have two regular meetings every week, and then we have a bunch of monthly and bi-monthly meetings. So
Nice.
there's about 8 or 9 meetings on the schedule throughout the month, not just talking and sharing with peer support, but also we have an art, we have a writing, we have grief specific, we have a suicide because we know how prevalent suicide is becoming. I know that's one of your passions too. We have one where a sibling died from suicide. We have that once a month. Um, yeah, and then we have a relationship one, so a sibling with a partner, so that this way to negotiate grief in relationship with one another. So I want to actually see that grow more to include addiction, including cancer, and some other things. But what I'm realizing too is that we need a resource page that's like a fluid resource page that people can kind of go to get books, and there's grief jewelry, there's all kinds of stuff that we talk about all the time, and there should be a hub for that. So but it then needs money to be able to support all this stuff. So which is why I sort of have made it my professional journey to move into the grief world, so that this way the like everything can support one another.
I think it's well thought out, and I really I'm looking forward to seeing how this is all going to come together for you and
Yeah.
for the world.
Me too. Me too.
So, who would you say, Jason, is your favorite person to listen to?
So yeah, right, and that changes for sure. Currently, right now, I've been doing a lot of work with Tony Robbins, and for my own personal development to get myself to the next level, so that I can be of service to more people. So he's definitely been an inspiration. He's the one that I think he has really good strategies that have helped me to move it from peer support to professional, and now towards business growth. So,
Sure.
right, so that this way, the better I become, the more people I can serve and the more people I can help.
Well, that's interesting. Are you going back to the 1980s and 90s Tony Robbins stuff, or are you working with him these days?
The Yeah, currently, yeah, I'm part of his community right now. I've been I w we just my wife and I just took a full year last year, we had it, and we did his mastery university, which covers a bunch of his different programs, including wealth mastery, life mastery, UPW, Unleash the Power Within, and Date with Destiny, and we're still involved. My wife has been doing some assisting for his program, so we're staying really involved. And looking at my inner circle, I pulled some of the people from those programs into my inner circle so that this way, we keep talking the same language.
That's wonderful. So I'm
Yeah.
old school. I knew Unleash the Power of In when it was giant,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
first
yeah,
book,
yeah.
and so getting his voice into your head is not something that's easy to get out, and it's
No, no. Yeah. Well, and you and I off camera, we talked about like getting results, right?
yes,
And doing the things that get results. And I love how results focused he is. And it's not like this woo woo. It's like really
yeah,
implementable strategies. And I'm seeing the results in my life. So,
yeah, yeah.
you know,
Well, using another technology to kind of explain, language comes in two kinds of flavors, and there's a lot more, but there's at least two kinds. The first one is talking about something where there's absolutely no chance you're going to make a difference with it, and then there's speaking for something where you're causing something to come into existence, with the power of your language.
yep.
Ver-
Mhm.
very, very, very different. And I think that's one of the working with Brian Tracy and some of the other things that he did in the early days, and the sales training and all of that really made the personal development side a wide open thing for him. And he
Yeah.
realized that just speaking to people and having them get his CDs and hearing each one and working on their, having some way to kind of affect a state change when they wanted to,
Yeah.
uh, or to be able to go to a place where, well, again, it's a favorite person to listen to, and you don't even have to be listening to any media in order to hear his voice.
Well, what you said this, and that's the state change thing is what really sort of triggered me because I'm a yoga instructor, and we're taught to be like, not high, not low, but right in the middle.
Yeah.
But when you're looking for success and when you're looking to push yourself to the next level, you need to be able to activate that peak state or that beautiful state or however you want to language it, right? Because we need that energy, we need that drive to bring us forward. Sometimes we need to take massive, massive action, and from a place of energy, not as a place of calm and
Yes.
serenity, right? Like we need to push ourselves a little bit at times, and
Yeah.
the ability to navigate between those for me was a total game changer.
Right. I love it. And that's neither here nor there, but every once in a while, I have to let that out.
Yeah, yeah.
So please complete this sentence, Jason. When I grow up, I'd like to.
Still be a kid. I have a very childlike, not childish, childlike heart.
Yep.
I always want to be a kid. I always want to play like a kid. I always want to see the world as a kid. I always want to do that. So even as I adult, I still want to look at the world with childlike eyes.
Yeah. The being willing to experience wonder on a daily basis really does keep us in that youthful kind of inquisitive, curious sort of state.
Yep, yep, and asking why. Like, why does this happen? Why does that happen? We get into our own patterns, and if we ask those why questions, like, why am I doing this? Why is the sky blue? All of those childlike questions, right? Like, we have to keep going back to that so that we don't settle into to these belief systems that don't serve us.
Absolutely. When things start looking the same and we look to elsewhere, for some sort of a catalyst to get out of it, we don't really realize we carry that with us every place we go, any moment at any time. And
Mhm.
when we start answering questions the same way every single time, it might be one of those times when maybe some new questions are called for.
Yeah, yeah, and the better quality questions, right?
Always a better question for
Yep.
sure. So that's great. And is there any other kind of a representation or a manifestation of your youthfulness and having a childlike mind in terms of experiencing things that you can point to?
Well, first of all, like, I mean, longevity is like super important to me, like, because I want my body to be able to match my childhood spirit, right? Like, so if I want to go hiking or walking, or like this morning I went biking, and just and having fun with those kinds of things, you need to have a vehicle in which, you're not, it doesn't stop you from doing those things. So
Right.
longevity has really been a focus of mine in my own personal life, because this way I can keep doing those things with, running and, playing without pain in the body. And so, where everyone says, oh, you're going to, break down as you get older, I'm actually the opposite way. I'm actually getting younger as I'm getting older physically. So that's been a real big focus of mine over the course
There's
of the
there's
last
been
6
there's
years.
been irrefutable studies done all around the world that that's just not true. It's
Yeah.
being sedentary that causes you to break down.
Yep.
Staying active is what allows you, to have a more, wonderful experience as you age with a lot less experience of pain.
Yep. And like, if you looked at me, like, as going back to my Pillsbury New Kid days, right? Like, I am like 100 times more active I was, even, growing up, doing all kinds of stuff. So, and as I said, like, changing that belief around getting, breaking down as you get older.
Sure.
I didn't want that to be my reality, and it's not my reality. So, you know, it's pretty
Well,
cool.
yeah, that's one of the neat things where you and I get to choose what we're going to do,
Yep.
where most people, unfortunately, don't feel like they have that choice,
Mm.
mostly because they have never stopped and really questioned it, and
Yep.
so I think that's a great thing.
Mhm.
So, with that said, what's the most important thing in life to you right now, Jason?
I would have to say, I would have to say longevity. That's the real thing that's really important to me personally.
Yep.
And then it's talking about my grief stories. Those two kind of sort of go hand in hand, because I am a bereaved sibling. I lost my sister Lauren in 1998, and so many bereaved siblings feel like they're forgotten mourners, because they're keeping it all to themselves, and because they're keeping it all inside. And so I want to be the model of, okay, I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to go out there and let people know who I am, let people know about the bereaved sibling experience, because most people are just not aware. They mean well, but some of the things that they say are very, very isolating, and a little hurtful at times. So I want to make sure that my story gets out there, which is one of the reasons why we connected, and two, kind of why I doing all kinds of different podcasts on all shapes and forms, so that people who are not even in the grief world get to hear my story.
So that's kinda cool how you language that. Everyone's in the grief world, but there are many of us who had to
Yep.
learn that there are conversations about how to deal with it and keep your sanity and to keep your vitality and self-expression, you know?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
I really like that whole part of it, and how many siblings, do you have?
Well, I just have the one that passed in '98, and so now it's me. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a huge missing for you,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about it, and I'm
Well,
looking forward to reading
and
your
as
chapter.
Yeah, and as my parents start to get older, and, that kind of stuff, like, it would have been the 2 of us, but now it's just me, and that puts a little bit more weight or burden on my shoulders, as they continue to age. So,
Sure. What would you like to leave in the world after your life is all done?
yeah, I'm gonna go back to this really beautiful, like, vibrant, bereaved sibling community, where everyone feels included, no one feels alone, and people can deal with their grief in a very open, expansive way.
Yeah.
That's sort of like, talk about, like, once I realize my purpose, right? Like, that's what I want to leave behind. Um, that online community where, and it's not just it right now. I mean, right now I'm just focusing on the US and Canada, but it's really a global thing. And I would love to see a global community kind of pull together, because I know, in other countries, the sibling resources, the bereaved sibling resources are so few and far between that that it needs to globalize. So that's, I don't know how that's going to happen quite yet, but that's kind of the legacy I would love to leave.
I definitely can see the path for that occurring, and not in the distant future.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right, so I go to a baker,
Okay.
and whenever I buy 12 of something, he or she, depending on who's behind the counter, always gives me a 13th. It's rolls, it's cupcakes, it's, whatever. So I got a baker's question for you.
You got
Uh,
it.
what is the thing most people misunderstand about you, Jason?
So because I am high energy, and I'm generally happy most of the time, I think people think that I don't get sad, or I have a problem with being sad or upset, or well, not upset, but more sad um because I am very energetic, and but I can also be quiet too. Like I can also sit in meditation. So that sort of sadness and quiet space I can go to just as easily. I make a conscious effort to try to change and shift it, but there are things that I definitely struggle with, and need to take some time to just to reflect on in a quiet way.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, so that's wonderful, and I've got is there anything else that you wanna talk about today? Like, how people can get in touch with you? You've
Sure.
mentioned some really great outreaches in terms of sibling, support groups, bereavement
Sure.
support groups.
Yeah. I made it super simple. Like I'm on social media platforms. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. So those are the three that I kind of really focus on. You can connect with all my social media and even get on my newsletter at somaticgrief.therapy.com. That's somatic grief therapy, all one word.com. And it has all of my stuff there. You can access the free sibling support, uh, peer support groups, through my website. You can book if you're interested in talking more about what somatic grief therapy is, which is really just a body centered way of looking at grief, because longevity is such an important part of me. And what I do, I always start with the body and keeping the body vital, so that this way our mind works better and we can ask those hard questions, but from a place of power and strength. And so you can, if you are interested in learning more, you can book a call right from my website. So somaticgrieftherapy.com.
Perfect. Now, do you have any questions of me?
No, I don't think. That's a good one. That's a good question. Yeah. So yeah, let's. Can we take a minute and how we met? Right. Like, can we share how we met? Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
Yeah.
Right. Let's. So how did we meet, Bill?
So, I met you through a person, that I met in the fall, who also has been on this podcast, Kate Mollison, and she introduced me to, Sam Ruth, who has also been on this podcast. And, I more or less had a really tough time the last 2.5 years, losing 25 relatives and loved ones, and not having a clue how to deal with it personally, because as a business owner and a leader in the community, and someone who coaches groups of people, companies, and all that, I'm supposed to know how to powerfully navigate through the worst things in life, and reduce the amount of time that's affecting my effectiveness, overall. So we jumped on a call, and where each of us are writing a chapter about our particular story. I think now going back a couple of months ago. We've completed our chapters, and they're in production to go to the editor for putting the book together, which is going to come out in December. And I have to tell you, I feel a little bit like that's a domain where, I'm a little over my head with regard to other people that have been involved with the grief conversation for a while, because I think most of the folks, it seems to me that they're in some kind of a practice where they've already decided to turn their life over to helping other people and make that a living, you know.
Yeah.
You are one of them, and you also come to me by way of one of my most favorite people on the entire planet, that I get to talk with once a week, pretty much, unless there's some kind of a religious holiday going on. We do speak for 8 days during Passover, but Jan Jeremias, she is this wonderful. We're so different. I mean, completely opposites in so many different ways, and I think our love for each other comes through, and that's kind of how we met. You're a friend of Jan's as well.
Yeah, and just so you know, Bill, you're not over your head, right? You're like I think and that's what happens is with, especially in the grief space, right? Like people think, oh, this person has, more experience than I do with it. I'm over, but everyone does it differently.
Yeah,
Everyone does grief differently, and we have to acknowledge that everyone starts somewhere, and you're exactly where you need to be, and you can never do it wrong because you're a unique individual with your own unique thoughts and with your own unique emotions that you bring to the table. So the way you
yeah,
do it, absolutely the way it works for you. So
yeah. How I'm doing it right now is learning how to speak less and listen more. Simply because there are things about people and their relationships with each other that are not apparent, and they're very important. And so I want to honor that. And it's a complete pleasure to spend time with you, Jason, after
yes,
having been on a couple of Zoom calls over the last month and a half,
yeah,
and to hear more. Go ahead.
I've been wanting to make the connection for a while, but like, as I said, like, divine timing, right? Divine timing. Now is the time.
Yep. And as Paul Masson said, no wine before it's time.
Yep, exactly. That's 100%, right? You can't rush it. It's got to be right.
Well, in terms of wrapping up, Jason, is there anything else that you'd like to say, or any kind of closing comments or anything?
Uh, Yeah, I always love to end with some sort, like, I mean, and after talking with you a little bit before our call, right? Like ending with some sort of action. So, because we can't leave that place of inspiration without some sort of action to be taken. So, what I want everybody that's listening to do is just to take about 3 deep breaths, just to kind of get grounded, right? And just take, and I'm going to do it too, but take 3 deep breaths, breathing in and out through the nose.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bill, for having me here. The pleasure was all mine.
Perfect. And you can claim as much pleasure as you like, but it's been a good way to spend a Thursday morning for me as well. So, in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, simple questions for 100 people. I think this is going to be either episode 39 or 40. And with that in mind, I leave you with the same in treatment that I have for the last couple of months. And that is, there are people in your life that'll make a difference for if you reach out to them and you just send them a text message, a telephone call, an email, a post on Facebook. Let them know that your world is better because they are in it. And if they ever need a friend, they've got at least one, and that's you, and they should call you. So, with that said, God bless all of you. I love every last one of you, especially those that I haven't met yet. Have the best day ever. And Jason, thank you again, my friend.
Thank you very much, Bill.
You're very welcome. Bye, y'all.
You've been listening to Simple Questions for 100 People, part of the Exvadio Podcast Network. You can find every episode at exvadio.com/podcasts, the Apple Podcast app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you find podcasts.